I am your host, Christiana. I am partner and COO at wethaplug. I'm so excited to have you all join us today. Looking forward to connecting with a dear friend of mine, Jarrod Russell. No, we're not related, but maybe we are. We just need to do some DNA testing down the line, maybe, in our genealogy. But the Cafecito series, again, for those of you all who may have not heard about us, but I started this journey a couple of months back. I wanted to showcase everyday people doing extraordinary things. My thought process is that we have many people in this world that have done extraordinary things, like celebrities and just people who have just made it at that high level. And that's fantastic. And I think more importantly is to connect with those who are in the trenches, who are going through that journey, and allow us to see it firsthand or hear about it firsthand. That for me inspires me and pushes me to say, keep going, you can do this. Sometimes it's more relatable. So my hope today is that you join us on this ride to learn more about Jarrod Russell and the work that he's doing within the community. I'm a part of it. wethaplug is a part of it. So without further ado, welcome, Jarrod.
Thank you so much, Christiana. And I've got my cafecito here, so we are having our cafecitos.
Yes, we are. I had to go run. I have to be honest, my cafecito is just water today because I needed to get more hydrated. So
okay, I support that.
You're legit drinking cafecito. I'm over here with some water, but still hydrated.
Yeah, well, this is great. I mean, I just, first of all, like a big shout out to Cafecito. I love what you're doing, Christiana, and wethaplug. We've participated in the past a lot in this San Diego startup ecosystem. And so it's just such a joy. I remember when I moved up to the Bay, you were like, our paths are going to cross again soon. We don't know how. And I feel really, privileged to be here with everybody today to talk about a little bit of an update on my journey.
Yeah. So what I didn't share is Jarrod and I met 2 years ago through Luis Martinez, my partner on, he's going to share a little bit about all that he is doing now, but just to kind of backtrack a little bit, we met during Startup Week. You were overseeing that whole process here in San Diego. Startup Week San Diego is a monster if you all have not heard about it. And obviously things have changed in this time that we're dealing with COVID. But it was new to me in 2018, and we connected briefly. And then in 2019, it was just more in depth and really found, I think, a kindred spirit. And when you did transition to San Francisco, I was like, oh, we're going to work together again. So here we are, and I'm excited about that. Who you are and what you do, and then we'll talk about the journey a little bit and dive more into the great work you're doing now. But just, what have you started?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jarrod Russell, I'm the COO and co-founder of Vote Plus 10. It's a free, we'll talk more about it, but it's a free online platform, a technology platform. And what I would say more importantly is a human perspective that we all have the ability, however busy we might be or however daunting it might seem, to take collective civic action together to make it. And we'll talk more about my journey to that sense of purpose and belief, and it's something I hold very strongly, and it's particularly important this year. And I don't need to belabor that; we all know that. And yeah, I'm from Oceanside, California, born and raised, lower middle income family. Dad's a retired Marine, mom's a school teacher, and I moved up to the Bay to be with my partner Katie. And I'm kind of getting adjusted up here still, but just dove right into my next kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. And I am an entrepreneur at heart. It manifests in a lot of different ways, but I always love to try to solve new problems and think outside of the box with new approaches. And I think that's something that wethaplug, and I'm sure Cafecito, a lot of the folks that come through here, we every time we think we have something big, that journey, that process, whether it's in an organization or in our communities, is a constant stage of growth, right? That constant change. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I don't want to talk too much, Christian. You manage me. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking.
Please believe me, this is the work that you're doing with No, we want you to 10. But prior to you even starting this, you kind of, when I met you, you were already deep in the trenches doing a lot of that grassroots work with early startup. what's the right word? What drew me more or caused me to lean more into you was your ability to walk the walk and talk the talk. It matched up.
Mhm.
You spoke of like diversity and inclusion and what that looked like, but you had clear pathways of how that was going to happen and was willing to roll up your sleeves to make that happen. Now, growing up in Oceanside, I don't know how diverse that community was. But talk a little bit about your early years and what kind of led you on this pathway of, wanting to be this advocate for all humanity.
Yeah, so it's interesting you asked that. I was thinking about that. I was reflecting on this the other day. Inland Oceanside, for those of you that know it, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but I can tell you that my friend base, it was like majority minority community where a lot of my friends were more from like, Guamanian or Latino or Black, right? Like I had friends, I had a very diverse street, I had a very diverse neighborhood in Inland Oceanside. So
You're
you know, I,
fortunate. That's awesome.
and I view that really in many ways as like a really core element of my upbringing, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about our national moment too. I think that and where we're at right now with police violence and structural racism, the things that we are also trying to address around that at Vote Plus 10. Bringing, and then just a love of culture, a love of diversity of culture and thought and practice and religion. Like, National Geographic for me was like my coloring book. Like I would sit there and I would just take it all in, right? Like that, I don't know, and I can't explain it. Like that was not, my parents did not travel a lot, but I just have this love of diversity of culture. It just to me lights me up. And so, that was very early. My dad took me my first international trip when I was a little kid was to Tijuana, right? Like he drove, he's like, pack your bag, you're gonna go somewhere. I'm like, we're flying. And he's like, no, we're not flying, but pack a bag for the day. And he drove me down to the border, and we went to the pedestrian crossing. At the time, it was like not nearly as built out as it is now. And there was literally a line drawn in the plaza that said USA and Mexico, and he just had me walk across the line. And I loved it. Like we had great food. We had such a good time getting to know little vendors in different areas. And what was the most impactful though is when I was leaving, a little boy my age came up to me begging. We have lots of, there's no question there is severe poverty in our country, but even in Inland Oceanside, it's lower middle income. I didn't see it on the street, right?
Yeah.
And so that, I started crying. Like he came up and he was begging, asking for money barefoot. And like my dad thought it ruined me, like I would never want to travel again. But I think what it did is it reinforced a sense of perspective and like recognition of privilege, if and when it's there, right? Like lower middle income family, it's not like I'm like, coming from some Ivy League family that has tons of money, but when you compare it to
Yes.
that little boy, even at 7, I could sense that from like the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That level of consciousness that you had at that young age, I think is pivotal in understanding at what stage. I think oftentimes, especially right now, parents are trying to figure out how do I have this. I used to work in the school system. Each child is different. But most are able to cognitively understand differences because once you're introduced to this world, you start to see things and you're not able to really maybe put language to it at first, but soon enough you do. And so having that dialogue and also exposure. I mean, you had exposure early on, which I think shaped obviously the trajectory of how your path was going to unfold. And you chose, instead of kind of pulling away from it, like, oh, you lean more into it. So you're trying to figure out which direction to go in. And obviously, Vote Plus 10 has always been inside of you. It just waiting for its time to come out. And I think for entrepreneurs, we don't often think like that we're going to birth many things, especially when you are open to it. I think sometimes we get stuck in, I can only do this one thing, this is what but you're supposed to birth many things. And some you are to nurture and hold on. What was that next step for you that, as you're coming of age and you're figuring out where your place is in the world, you're understanding privilege, you're seeing the divide between white privilege compared to, because I believe everyone has some level of privilege, but obviously there are others that are far more advanced their privileged access. But anyway, so at what point were you like kind of compiling all this and going, okay, this is where I'm going to go next with this?
Yeah. I'll start with like a really high level because my career spans kind of every sector and it's kind of all over the place internationally. But like, I think as I reflect, I'm 37 now and I've worked since I was 13, different jobs. So I've always worked hard, maybe not always with like a lot more planned, right? But I think if I had to recognize a theme, it was that like, because of that interesting culture, I had like this wanderlust that like while my friends were doing a lot of other things, spending money in other ways, I was trying to travel to experience other countries and other cultures. And so I was like going through this process of expanding my view and understanding of other, just the international dynamic. And that's what I studied was international political science and physics and global policy. And so that was natural for me to do that. But as I expanded further out and I started to look at like economic development or injustice across countries or within countries and climate change, and the more I understood it, the more I realized that we didn't have our act together at home.
Yeah.
So I lived in Brazil for quite some time. I've lived and worked in Mexico, and I would love to get to a point in life again where I'm able to be of service to underserved communities there. But like, there's a lot happening in our country for underserved communities, for climate change, and we're not leading in that, respect. There is an entire, cultural shift and moment around how do we recognize racial injustice, right? And part of me getting older and just like slowing down and starting to put roots, at least not looking at what country to go to next. And so, I picked up pieces along the way, as you said, like in ways I did not anticipate, right? Like I interned at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, between my undergrad and graduate school. I went to policy school for graduate school, both at UCSD. But I interned at the Carter Center and was focused on free and fair elections in Bolivia. Highly contentious electoral landscape there, very divided, much like our own. I thought we were way past that. Turns out I was wrong. I was in my mid-20s at the time when I interned there. And so the first elected officials that I met were Bolivian, not American. I got really discouraged by what I was seeing with respect to climate and environmental degradation with some of my research in graduate school and thereafter, looking at the impacts of climate in Northeast Brazil, again, meeting with and presenting to elected officials. Hadn't met with any of my own yet in the United States, even like locally. And I just got so discouraged. I came back to the US, I volunteered with a group called Citizens Climate Lobby. They're a nonprofit focused on getting people to express their political will for a livable world, right? The power of advocacy. And that's when I started to meet with my own electeds, right? At the local level, in DC. I went to DC for the first time because of them. And I got to like really feel what it means to walk in the halls of elected democracy, right? Like, what does it mean to have people in elected power, and how do you interact with them as a constituent or not, as somebody who lives in this country? So that for me was a really powerful transition. To this day, and informs my thinking about, who else feels that way? Who else, maybe they haven't met with any elected official, right? Maybe they haven't been fortunate enough to even know what powers and what levers they have in their life to affect change with their elected officials. So that's like a really big step for me. I think that when you combine that like sense of democracy, like we're not going to address climate if we don't have a healthy democracy. We're not going to address racial injustice unless we have a healthier democracy. And there's a lot of organizations that do such a great job focusing on the first piece, which is voting, and we need it, right? Like along various lines, age or ethnicity, in 2016, 2018, and what we're looking at now. But that is the critical piece. Like that is the first step on the journey of civic engagement, is like making sure we vote, right? Like, but there's so much more that we can do, and so that's what we try to do at Vote Plus 10. And so that really helped inform that process for me of the levers of personal power that we can start to use to influence, positive outcomes that we want. And then the other piece is technology, and that really came about serendipitously. I got recruited into a tech company to be their director of public affairs. It's a fast-growing startup, Underground Elephant. And so I was there 2.5 years, got really involved with the San Diego startup ecosystem, really felt a sense of community around that. And, you know, like we're San Diego in that time, and still it's to some degree is a fast growing, but still nascent community compared to, you know, when you look at like what's happening in the Bay, but I would argue is robust. It was an interesting time at that time, supportive of community and technology and understand what we can do at scale from anywhere. I hadn't worked in a tech company before. And so I've always taken that lens with me too about like, what is the power of technology? Like if we solve a problem, like for example, at Vote Plus 10, if we spend 5 hours designing an action that, you know, sometimes it's hard. It's actually much harder to make something simple. Anybody who's built something knows that. Like to make something intuitively simple is actually hard, generally.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if you have like my limited IQ, then like, you know, some people just get it. For me, it's like I gotta waste a bunch of time to
Yeah.
figure it out.
I mean, listen, everything is a learning curve for somebody at some point in their journey.
But, you know, like if we make a civic action, whether it's, you know, something that, you know, with George's primary, that was it was a very challenging primary, and there were a lot of problems with the electoral process there. So we're trying to react quickly to help give people tangible actions in Georgia. If we spend 5 hours designing a civic action that helps them contact their governor really quickly across any medium, you know, text, email, social, and then 1,000 people take that action, well, then we've saved 5,000 hours probably for somebody else for people trying to think through that process on their own. Maybe they wouldn't even take the action. So, you know, that's that combination of civic engagement and technology at scale to help fellow Americans in the United States is a really beautiful opportunity to address some of these issues and start to get people to embrace their own civic journey. You know, and like I have this belief, like there's a lot of frustration, rightfully, a lot of anger, right? And I've been talking to, you know, many of my friends, for example, of color, who one of my colleagues in Georgia, she's like, what I want to do is take this anger and this frustration, and we keep channeling it into sustainable action.
Exactly.
Because anger is not sustainable. Like anger and frustration have their utility for all of us. It's a human emotion, like that we need to get started. But at least for me personally, my belief is that it's not a sustainable emotion.
Well, it's fluid. Emotions are fluid, right? They're
afterwards.
And then some, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's our hope, is that our hope is that we can continue to offer ways to have a sense of agency, right? That if we feel powerless, then that's also going to be an issue, right? Like one of the things that I think about a lot is that dissatisfaction with democracy is increasing around the world, not just in the United States, it's around the world. Polarization, particularly among conservative governments, is increasing, which creates division. And so, you know, the question is like, how do we restore faith in our democracy? Like, I'm not advocating that Vote Plus 10 will change everything. Like, we're going to do our small piece of the pie, but where are we dissatisfied? And either, you know, who has the tools to address that, or what tools can we build, either locally or in the state or nationally, or how can we use our companies and our organizations as platforms to drive engagement, civic engagement, from voter turnout all the way through the gamut. I can talk about some of the actions that we support too in Vote Plus 10. But that's kind of a meandering high level, Christiana, of the.
No, I mean, for me, when you and I connected initially, you know, it was that need for how do we channel everything that's happening right now, our lifespan, where things like this happen, but they must lead to actionable items that we can take and feel like we're making an impact. I've had so many calls from folks that were not just colleagues of mine, partners of mine, friends, but folks that have been referred to me to say, I need help, whether it was white allies or other people of color or Black people come to me saying, where can we go? What can we do? So talk to us a little bit about Vote Plus 10 in, you know, for me, I've been taking on the role of advocacy, sharing with people my link, getting people aware of how they can get involved, because again, all of us want to change it at the root level, and we recognize that happens in our community. So walk me through Vote Plus 10. Christiana comes to the site. walk me through what that looks like, what that experience is going to be like. Can I take moving forward to make sure that I'm part of the change that I want to see in my local community, and then ultimately in the greater.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so basically, there's a few key elements to what we do. The first thing is it's about simple action, right? So we want things, civic actions on our system or issues that you care about. Like we also have actions you can take around social justice. We have actions you can take around climate. So it's really the core of the platform is to have a positive impact socially, politically, and environmentally, right? In the United States. And so we have lots of issues you can choose, but if you were to refer me in, Christiana, then I would get a unique link from you. I would put in simply my email. Some of our forms. Another key thing we're trying to do is reduce spam in the political space. For anybody who has joined a political party, a campaign, or donated,
oh my God, it's insane.
Once you do that, the tree goes out in a lot of different directions, and lists get consolidated. So we're also trying to address that, and so we have a strict policy of not sharing emails. And there are ways to join other email lists in our system, but we make it very explicit that you're opting into something, because we know that that's a place that's a race to the bottom, that one. And then so simple actions, ask for your info. You don't get a ton of emails from us. And then when you go into the system, you're going to see, actions that you can take. Do you want me to share my screen so you can see it?
Sure, let's walk through it.
Let's just share the screen so everybody can see it. I'll need the host to give me the ability to share my screen. So I'll just talk until then. But if we can make me host, then our co-host, I can share. But basically, simple actions, right? Like at the end of the day, what we want people to be able to take these actions in 2 minutes or less. So everything from registering to vote, to committing to vote, to getting your friends to commit to vote, right? Like that right in and of itself, the peer-to-peer, it's called, peer-to-peer engagement. Think about this. I don't have the stat yet on behavioral, but if you're simply contacted by a campaign, okay, perfect. So if you're simply contacted by a campaign, you don't even know the candidate, but if you're contacted by the campaign to say, hey, will you vote for me? That person is 40% more likely to vote in that election. 40% more. Doesn't matter who it is.
More?
Yeah. So imagine if a friend reminds a friend to vote. It's got to be higher, right? Because it's your friend. Like you're like, hey, make sure you vote in the election. I'm going to vote. I'll be there.
Right.
Our voter turnout in this country is under 50%, right? It's not mandatory.
Yeah.
And so with the relational organizing or the peer-to-peer organizing, the power of our voice to our friends in our network is not to be discounted. Like that is the most important thing. If we all assume that our friends need to be reminded to vote, voter turnout will go up. It'll go up. Voter turnout will go up. Let's see. So I have it here. So this is my network. This is my page. So it's, like I said, this is a tool. It's a technology platform, but also a perspective. And the core of the perspective are these actions, right? So the whole driving force is that we have actionable material. So are you registered to vote? Yes or no? If you click no, then we integrated with TurboVote, who does a really great job with voting, to register to vote. If you click yes, then it's like, thank you for registering. You're all registered. That's awesome. Double check if you want, and then you go to vote.org. So, in this instance, we work with partners to not recreate the wheel. There's already great organizations that do an awesome job. When We All Vote, Michelle Obama's organization does an amazing job as well. So I follow a social justice group as well. So in my actions, I have a color of change petition to end the war on Black people, right? We make it really easy. Text demands to this number. And then you're prompted to sign that petition and learn what it stands for.
Yeah, I signed up for that one as well. Yeah.
Right, and I mean, obviously with George Floyd's murder and everything that has unfolded because of that tragic event, that we're all always looking for action. And I hope that we sustain that energy together. And we've had people, when we have a lot of actions around that, for example. So there's also groups in the system, like I'd mentioned. There's a climate group. So we have a lot of actions there. We have a social justice group. Yeah. And so just to give you an idea, we have, I think, about 15 actions in here or more. So police funding reform, requested vote by mail ballot. That's going to be a
Yeah,
really
I signed up for that one too. You know what I must say, just to not cut you off, but I definitely want to highlight this right here. If you could leave it right on that screen.
yeah.
One of the things that I think is most challenging is when you are abroad. Like for me, you know, when I first transitioned out here to California from Arizona, I was not getting all my mail. So I wasn't
Mhm.
able to vote in my local elections. And it
Yeah.
was frustrating because the process of getting your mail, excuse me, of changing to get access to voting by mail can sometimes be frustrating because you're going through the process and they're telling you, oh, you're not in this right zip code, oh, your zip code, change your code, whatever. What I appreciate most about yours, because I did go through this on my own to see how fluid it was so quick and simple and easy. Before I knew it, it was like, oh, all is done, you're done, you're good, da, 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 whatever. And I just thought, wow, how nice is it to be able to easily select this, especially for a lot of folks who are in areas where the lines to vote are absurd. And
Yeah.
obviously, we know there's a lot behind that, and it's
Yeah.
intentional because
Yeah.
most of these places, the majority of them, are in lower income um,
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
really appreciate you having that on there as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we
Simplifying
spend a
it.
lot of time trying to get these right to make sure that we're channeling energy the right way efficiently for people, right? Like, and so, you know, every action adds up to points. So you can, and really the points, the goal is for a sense of progress and agency. Remember we talked about like, well, what emotions are sustainable or which ones flow and what do you replace frustration and anger with? And hopefully that's a sense of progress, right? In a sense of agency. And so, you know, like something like this, not only that, but if so you're collecting points, like I've done 31 actions. My network has completed 500, almost 600 actions on the system thus far. We just launched 2 months ago, but we already have over 4,000 actions completed across the country. So obviously we want that number to be like any technology platform, we want that number to be in the millions.
Yes,
But you got to start somewhere, right? And the fact that
exactly.
we've been able to already catalyze over 4,000 actions across the country
It's significant.
during a pandemic, right? So that's the other piece is like this is online relational organizing. And then you know, let's say that you really like this request of vote by mail ballot, and I'm going to share it. Then I can immediately post it on Facebook, right? And so I can post it on Facebook, or in another instance, I can let's do this 1 second. So if I post this on Facebook here, right, it just comes up as the action, or you know, and what this has in it is it has a referral. So basically what this will do is if I share this, it's going to come up with a different name because I have a cookie in here, but basically if I share this, then people can take this action without even joining Vote Plus 10.
Yeah,
So we're not, you know, yes, we want as many people to be using Vote Plus 10 as possible, but we want, the most important thing is that they take action. And if they can do it with or
exactly.
without giving us information, right? And if they want to join the community and be a part of our effort, then that's awesome. So, you know, there's a lot of social justice actions in here. And this is the basics of how the system works. I can see in my network, I can see how many people are in my network. It's just going to take a second to load, right? So I can sort based on their impact score and see which of my friends are taking the most action, how many people they have in their network. So this is the gamification piece, right? So I can nudge my friends and I can see where we're all at in terms of our civic action and encourage them to continue to take more action. And that's a piece that you can't normally do. Like you think of a campaign or registering to vote and they're one-off
Yeah,
transactions. And so our real goal is like how to take civic action and put it into an apples to apples sense of progress at an individual and a collective level. I studied policy, and a big thing in policy is, I can share the screen again if you want, but a big thing in policy is collective action dilemma. That the groups that would benefit most from cooperating are often the most disparate, and they have a harder time getting together to actually achieve what they want. That's why companies do such a great job organizing. They're more focused, their incentives are very immediate. And
correct.
so, you know, how do we, and we have to solve the collective action dilemma, and that's gonna, I mean, collective action around racial justice, collective action around climate, collective action just around inequality in general, wealth, economic ethnicity, right? So
Yeah.
how do we address these?
Absolutely. Share a little bit about, thank you so much for going that deep dive into how the engagement happens. Talk to us a little bit. There are many of us who have relatives that are involved in the political scene. Either they themselves are in office, or they're running for office, or they're just well connected to folks that are in office. Share a little bit about how they can rally those folks onto the platform, and how they can utilize it to help further advance the great work that they're doing in the community. And obviously I'm talking about people who are helping to move the needle in the right direction of change, not the ones that are trying to keep it status quo.
Yeah, and I'll address it. That brings up a couple points. So I'll address a couple things. First, I'll put in the chat window, I'm going to put my join link. I just put it right in there, but that's to join my group. Love to see you in there, or join Christiana's. You can put yours into Christiana. We'll see who gets more people in their network. It'll probably be you.
Oh yeah, we're gamifying it. That's right.
Yeah.
Me, I'm over here like, join this network, guys.
Yeah, well, and so this is a good question.
Just join. That's what we want you to do.
Right.
And take action.
So the way, like, as an organization, like, principally, we support kind of three categories of organizations. We support campaigns. We partner with them to help drive engagement in their constituency. We partner with mission-driven organizations. So for example, if there's a company that has a really strong CSR commitment, corporate social responsibility commitment, then we can work with them to drive engagement both within and outside of their company. And then lastly, large national or international nonprofits that want to drive engagement around their mission in a peer-to-peer fashion, right? So those are like kind of the three areas where we work, coupled with obviously at the individual level, providing tools for all of us as individuals in the country, right? So it's like a two-sided market, right? In the instance that we help organizations with community and audience already, and we help individuals with their civic journey. And then, you asked about how do we help campaigns? So, we all know what campaigns generally ask for. Like, they need volunteers, they need your vote, they need your dollars, and your expertise and your connections, and so like, those are pretty standard asks, which we also include in our system for campaigns. However, imagine if every campaign, and maybe some do this well, but like, just imagine if this became a pretty standard thing, that every campaign was a vehicle for civic action, right? Like every campaign, started with helping the civic journey, which they kind of do to make sure that you vote, obviously that you vote for the candidate, but that you vote in general. They can provide 5 other steps of whether or not the candidate wins, like how to deepen the civic journey in their own communities, right? Rather than like, if I don't win, then this platform dissolves with me. But really, every campaign can be a vehicle, and we want to help them deepen the engagement of people by making it easier, so that their campaign truly becomes a transformative vehicle for change for as many people as they can reach as possible. Obviously, the hope for the candidates that we work with is that change also then leads to more votes and more referrals to friends that will also then vote for them. And so the other thing I'll speak to also, Christiana, is like, we've had a long conversation. Everything that we provide in terms of actions, like if you look at our core actions for the civic journey, that should be something that, in our opinion, that everyone in the United States supports, regardless of party. Like, now there are some things that have become politicized, right? I don't have to list all of them, but I mean, voter turnout has been one. Unfortunately, like, in a democracy, how is voter turnout politicized, right? Like, it should be in our shared interest that we have high voter turnout. And 3 is climate change. Like, again, so there's some things where we're okay with taking a common sense stance. We don't tell people how to vote. We don't tell people like what to care about. They opt into those things that might be a little more political. But like there's a common sense of like knowing where your polling place is, knowing that you can ask friends to vote in your state and other states, like you're allowed to use your voice, right? Right to assemble, right to free speech. So like that piece there is like, we want that to be nonpartisan. We even want to start an issue polarization. Like we sign all of our emails with toward a healthy democracy and planet. And what do you define as a healthy democracy? I think if we all talked, there'd be a lot where we would add a lot of different ideas for each other, because there's so many ways to look at what is a healthy democracy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we also don't believe that um, that the path of polarization that we're currently on is sustainable either. And so if we become an echo chamber to only one piece, then we're not necessarily solving the problem. And so, we obviously so what does that look like is like, okay, well, let's huddle around the things that we can change as a country and make them accessible to everyone. And then, the organizations and the people that are going to truly leverage the power of those tools will hopefully also have a sense of like a shared effort based on the rules of the game and how we might need to. That's a little bit about where we're at with that, right? Is like, we want that to like, I have family members who are conservatives, right? Like, and
same.
yeah, and I would love for them to at least drop into the core actions and say like, okay, like I can get that. And then they might go into the climate group or the social justice group, and that might not feel like what they might skip a lot of those actions, right? But I would love for all of us to be able to say, these are the shared things that we care about as a democracy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's pretty safe to work toward agreeing on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And one of the things that I had shared with you offline, how important it is for those of us who do go and actually vote. I think sometimes it can be frustrating because the process of understanding who it is that is best suited for our community, whatever the position is that they're applying, that they're running for, whatever. Sometimes, you'll go in there and you're like, I don't know who this person is or what, I don't know. Are they in my party? Okay, check that box.
Yeah.
And you could miss the one that is the more qualified for that. And what I appreciate about your site is it allows one to go in and really do a clean sweep of who the person is that they're voting for. Should you advocate, this is me advocating for everyone who's listening to this, to reach out to your local politicians that are, like I said, part of that change, and encourage them to come on board here, because it just allows for those that don't want to look at the booklet that they're given, or are confused about which site to go to, because everyone has a website nowadays. But it's just one place where you can go and go, okay, this is who they are. This is, what they've done. Okay, I think this is the person that best suits the position, in my opinion. And then check that box, whatever party that they're connected to. But so again, the simplification of it all, the ability to be an advocate and actually ignite actionable items that not only you can do, but your close community and beyond can do, is so important. Again, we're all frustrated and angry on all different levels with what's happening in our society around racial injustice. And, for me, it hits close to home, because I have nephews, I have uncles, I have brothers who are my real brothers, but they're my cousins, but I call them my brothers, or friends that are my brothers. But I've experienced firsthand where they've experienced the brutality of law enforcement. And I also, in the same coin, have family members who are in law enforcement who went in to create change because they saw it firsthand themselves. And so I appreciate that all of us can come together on this platform and impact the change that we want to see, whether it's signing a petition, or, like you said, we can create groups. If someone would want to create a group, or because I know there's different subscription-based, I think it's subscription-based, but talk a little bit about that.
Totally. So for nonprofits, especially if it's like a regional nonprofit, if it's a large national, then we would need to charge. But for most purposes, if it's a nonprofit, it will be free to get the initial group up and running. I just included a link here, you can sign up based on the link I just sent in. You can sign up to, if you're interested in creating a group for your organization. Then send us a note and let's have a conversation because we want to help. And so that's one way to approach it. And then our costs, like we're still early, right? We're like 2.5, 3 months in to launching. So it's going up as we get more requests, it's going up. But I think that right now our introductory is at like $50 a month, all the way up to like $500 a month. And that's just like for like doing everything for a large scale organization. But for most purposes, I'd say send us an inquiry if you want, We the Plug or Cafecito can have, like pretty much you can have your own, everyone can have their own account as a user for free. So for all intents and purposes, Christiana, you can use your group, like your individual user account. Cafecito. Hey, take these actions with me. But if people want to start a group, then the link is there.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Thank you for that challenge.
Yeah, totally. And you won't, so you'll be able to just ask people to take the standard actions that are on there. The benefit of having a group is that we can add issue-driven actions. So folks would, in your case, Christiana, if you wanted people to take social justice actions, you would need to share those with everyone. Mm-hmm. But if those are already part of your group and they join your referral, then they'll have those social justice actions already in their list of actions to take. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Well, Jarrod Russell, let me just say, usually the way I wrap it up is, what is your call to action? But this whole conversation has been a call to action. What I appreciate, like I said, most about you, you are the same man that I met 2 years ago. You just continue to evolve and elevate. And I am thankful for the opportunity to not just partner with you in the professional sense, but also, connect with you as a friend, as our friendship grows. And it's an honor to be able to be a part of this whole early stage process of founding this company that you and your friends have put together. It's so well thought out, and I know it will only continue on. To go on there. Links will be attached at the end of this recording, so you'll be able to click on it and learn more about it. But for the people, just share, Jarrod, how can they find you and connect with you?
So my links are in the thread here, but everyone can reach out to me on my social, Jarrod Russell, it should show up. You can email me at Jarrod, Jarrod, @vote10.org. You can reach out to me there, and
or on We the Plug. He's also on that platform as well.
Oh yeah, I updated my account this morning, so my bio is complete. You'll see me smiling like this.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, please reach out to me on We the Plug. Shout out to We the Plug and Cafecito and Christiana. Thank you so much. You're so good at what you do, and it's just great to reconnect and spend time. And my hope, like you said, there's a lot of actions in Vote Plus 10. So my hope is that we all take action together to build a better world. And I hope to see you on there.
We'll see you all on the other side. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of The Cafecito. Remember to check in with each other. Make sure that you are staying connected. All of us need someone to listen to from time to time, even your strong friends. I haven't shared this before, but again, please check in on your strong friends. Oftentimes we forget those that seem to always be the one that we go to and we connect with in our time of need. They too need to hear from you as well. So please check in with your strong friends. Love and light to everyone. Have a great rest of your day.